This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ Bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Catch the NBA playoffs on Sling TV, the most flexible live TV streaming service, putting consumers in control to watch games their way with flexible subscriptions. Want to catch one game or a full series on ESPN? Grab a 1, 3, or 7-day pass. If you want to catch as many games as possible, get a monthly subscription with our ABC, NBC, and ESPN combo package. Either way, Sling lets you watch the playoffs your way with no long-term contracts. Learn more at sling.com.
A warm and friendly hello! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Curtis Rogers. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports. We're going to chat with him about what we've all seen here in the offseason. We're going to talk with him about some of the NBA draft decisions. He is a man that graduated from Arizona, and we will be leading off by talking about the big news that we saw from Saturday, the fact that Motiejus Krivas, he is back for the Arizona Wildcats for this upcoming season, so we'll chat about that, some of the winners and losers that we've been seeing here in the offseason thus far, and in the final segment, I'm going to give you guys a recap of the news and notes that we saw in college basketball over the last 24 hours. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, RCM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, and I do beg of you, I do plead with you, please do send these in, because we've got like 180 plus days of the offseason before games get back going, so we'd love to be able to answer some of the questions that you've got for the upcoming season, and help us pass the time a little bit more. But that said, getting back Motiejus Krivas for Arizona is very big, and we are seeing a lot of these fringe guys returning to where they came. Patrick Ngangba, along with Dame Sarr, returning for Duke. Those were a few big announcements that we've seen over the last few days as well. And while you are going to be losing Brady Burries for this bunch, obviously Jane Bradley is just flat out eligibility. And Koa Pete, he did announce about 48 or so hours ago that he's going to be entering into the NBA draft as well. Krivas was a main man for this team down low. He was able to supply the team with 10.5 points, 8.2 rebounds per game. Toby Awaka is currently going through the process as well, but if they're able to get him back, I think that he still is maintaining his eligibility. I think that he's got a year left if he wants it. That'd be big because Ivan Kirchnikov, he is going to be back as well. He was a 10.5 point per game scorer, a little bit more versatility than Krivas. Krivas is a 7'2" true big man. For Kirchnikov, he's a little bit of a 6'7" do-it-all sort of combo player that's able to pop it and lock it from 3-point range. But that's big for Arizona moving forward. Are they going to have some holes to fill? And do I think that they need to do a little bit more in the transfer portal? Yes, they brought in J.J. Bandicoot. That's a nice starting spot from Washington, and they've got a nice recruiting class coming in. Much like 8 seasons ago, they've still been a team that's been able to do a really good job in terms of being able to spot these freshmen, so that's been big for them. But I do think that things are on the up and up for Arizona once again. Do I think that they can quite duplicate what they did a season ago with the pieces that are lost? I think that that's going to be a little bit difficult. They're going to need to find that Koa Pete type, and hey, maybe Kirchnikov can become a little bit more of that, because it's not like Koa Pete was shooting a bunch of threes and lighting the world on fire with that regard or anything like that. But I do think that this is very big for this squad, and I do think that things are very much on the up and up for Arizona. And as we've been seeing these NBA draft decisions, much like we've been seeing over the last few seasons, these guys are sort of on the fringe of maybe perhaps being a first-round pick or something like that. And in this case, Thomas Ha, a guy who was definitely going to be a first-round pick, they're returning to school more and more. That's what has been been a really big benefit of NIL and everything that's happened in college basketball over the last few seasons. I know that you can have your thoughts on the guys playing for 5 different schools in 5 years, and I'm right there with you. I do think that's a little bit ridiculous when you've got a guy in Antoine Jones who's trying for season number 9 of eligibility. That's absolutely ridiculous. He has been in college for darn near a decade now, so that's some good, clean family fun, but certainly it is nice to be able to see these talented guys returning to school, not rush the NBA draft process, and now you get to know these guys a little bit better in the college game, and that makes it a little bit easier, in my opinion, to be able to handicap as well. So that was some good news on Saturday, and it's always good news when I'm able to say that we've got Curtis Rogers coming on the program, and he's going to join me right here on the flip side, right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Motiejus Krivas, now part of the Beats and Family Podcast.
This podcast is sponsored by IQ Bar.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here at Lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops and now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got Curtis Rogers aboard. He does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, looking at this great game that we all know and love of college basketball. I know that he's very involved in baseball right now, doing the pre- and post-game hosting for the Seattle Mariners and does a superb job there. But all 12 months out of the year, he does a great job looking at the college basketball front. I know that he's also looking at what is going to be a new organization for the city of Seattle in the NBA sooner rather than later as well. So very much hyped up about that. I know that he's doing a great job just with regards to everything that's happening out there in the Pacific Northwest, including the NFL draft that just came and passed. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X along with Instagram at @akidfromken all together. And Curtis, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Greg, thanks for having me. Yeah, college basketball season, it does feel like the tournament was just yesterday, but you know what? The offseason waits for no one. If you're still waiting, you've been lapped because the portal has been open for quite a while. Guys are now entering the NBA draft, and so we're getting a better picture of what these rosters are going to look like. It's not so much a feeble task anymore, kind of projecting the 26-27 season as we're getting a better picture of what these teams might look like. Still some chaos across college basketball for sure, but things seem to be settling down a little bit.
Yep, they do seem to be settling down just a little bit, and we're starting to know a little bit more of what we're going to be getting out of these teams. And I know you're a graduate of the Arizona Wildcats, so it's great that we have you on this day because we've seen a lot of draft decisions. No surprise that you had Braden Burries along with as well Koa Pete declare for the NBA draft. Those are guys that are probably going to be drafted in the top 15 in the lottery, so you figure that those guys were going to be as good as gone. But that said, Motiejus Krivas, a lot of people thought that he was going to be gone. He returns to school on Saturday. Just what do you make out of that, and what the Arizona Wildcats might have down low this year? Because it does seem like the guard play is going to be much different than last year, but it's nice to see Krivas come back to be able to give them sort of that anchor of what they had down low from a season ago.
Yeah, I think that was a huge, you can't really say pickup since he was already on the roster last year. So it was a huge.
Charlie Donovan says that the best pickups are the ones that you've already got.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Krivas will be entering his 4th year in the program, which is a rarity to see in college basketball these days. So, yeah, I think that was a huge move by Arizona to get him back in the fold. And now they're just kind of waiting on Ivan Karchenkov, who was one of the ultimate glue guys in college basketball last year. A great hustle player for sure. If he does come back, I would kind of imagine he ascends into that starting role at the 4 spot for Arizona. And, I mean, they've got a lot of good guys coming back. Caleb Holt, the top 5 prospect, he is now going to be probably playing the role that Braden Burries vacates. So I don't necessarily think they're going to be as good as they were last year, but definitely a preseason top 10 team, maybe even a preseason top 5 team, I think, if they can get Ivan Karchenkov back. They've added a couple of good players in the portal. J.J. Mandequit from Washington, the point guard, that's an interesting one, especially because Tommy Lloyd, he coached him at the under-18 tournament with Team USA just a couple of years ago, so there's some history there. But all in all, I think Arizona has done a pretty good job, even though they did lose quite a bit of talent in the NBA draft, also losing Dwayne Aristo to the portal, former 5-star recruit. It's going to be a really good season ahead of them for Arizona. Is it going to be as good as it was this last year where, the only team really to give them a fit was the best team in college basketball? I don't know, but I think Arizona does have a really good shot at contending in the Big 12 once again.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that it's so interesting that 2 of the 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament this year, they're returning so much because there's a lot of buzz around Arizona right now, and rightfully so. And what do you make out of the fact that Florida is running back with so many of their guys? Other than really Micah Handlogden, they've got much of that low post back from a season ago. Just like with Arizona, they're going to have a few moving pieces in the backcourt. I believe that Xavion Lee is out of eligibility, but those are 2 teams that were at the top of college basketball last year, that they were built around low post play, and they have retained their forwards.
They have, and I think Florida has done a remarkable job kind of bringing back everybody from their team a year ago. Yeah, it was a disappointing end to it, but they were one of the best teams in college basketball at the end of the regular season. The big thing with Florida, though, is what happens with Todd Golden, because we don't know if Steve Kerr is going to be back with Golden State in the NBA, and there's a lot of hot rumors right now saying that Todd Golden, who has ties to the Bay Area, coached at USF, as we know, for a number of years, went to school at St. Mary's. So there's potential there maybe that Todd Golden takes the jump to the NBA. If that's the case, then I don't know if you can bank on a lot of these guys who have committed to Florida or who have said they're coming back to Florida. I don't know if you can bank on them being there opening night of the 2026-2027 college basketball season. That, to me, is a situation definitely worth monitoring. I don't know when we should expect a decision from Steve Kerr in the NBA as to whether or not he's going to move on, but that's definitely a situation worth monitoring, because if Todd Golden takes off for the NBA, which, I mean, the NBA is the NBA. You don't have to recruit there. You don't have to do a lot of the dirty work that you got to do in college basketball. It's tempting for any college coach to take that leap. So if he gets offered a job in the NBA, who knows what this Florida team could look like. But as of right now, as of late April, yeah, I think Florida is definitely one of the handful of teams right now that I would say you could make a really strong Final Four case for.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's very early on, but I mean, those are 2 teams that are looking rock solid, as we do have Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I mean, say what you will about Duke. I'm sure that there's many people listening to this podcast that may not love Duke, the Blue Devils, but that said, bringing back Caleb Foster, Patrick Ngongba, as we know, they've got a nice recruiting class coming in, because they always have a nice recruiting class coming in. It feels like they're going to be a force as well. And I mean, it feels very weird to say, but could we have a lot of the teams that we saw in the top 5, top 10 last season just be right back there, with Michigan being able to reload once again with bringing back Elliot Kadu?
Yeah, I think it's interesting how NIL has kind of actually brought back the talent to college basketball. There were so many years where everybody's like, oh, we're losing talent to overseas teams. Guys were going the G League route, what have you. But NIL has not only kept talent in school, I think talent that maybe would be on the outside of the first round guys would be getting second round grades. And we're going to start to see what kind of grades these guys are going to be getting as the NBA Combine is coming up. These guys go through all the interview processes. They still have that ability to come back to school if they don't get the kind of draft grade that they're hoping to get. And who knows, with how crazy the rules were this year, maybe you go through the entire draft process and then all of a sudden you find yourself on a college basketball roster. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But we saw it at Alabama. We saw it at Baylor this last year. Who knows what could possibly happen. But, yeah, I think, you look at all these teams being able to retain their talent, it does make for a more compelling product in college basketball because you're starting to see guys who have been around college basketball for years and years and years that are sticking around. And you're starting to, kind of develop these storylines of, players that have been in the game for 3, 4, 5 years now that we all kind of grew up on in college basketball. I think one of the more intriguing scenarios to me next year is what will Caden Boozer's reception be like at Duke when he, had such a horrific moment to end Duke's season last year. Like, what's that reception going to be like at Cameron Denver? I'm sure it'll be positive, but like, how does a player like that kind of overcome such a huge mistake? And then also you got Braden Mullins coming back to UConn after hitting such an amazing shot. So, like, there's a lot of great talent coming back to college basketball after what I thought was a really fun year, a really phenomenal year, just top to bottom, with great talent all over the place. And, we're going to see it on draft night, just how much ridiculous talent there was in this college basketball season. But I really enjoy the fact that we're starting to see guys stay around in school a little bit more. Yes, the NIL money that these guys are making has a big impact on that. But all in all, if you're just going from a quality of basketball standpoint and a quality and health of the game standpoint, I think college basketball, it has not been in a better place than this in, I don't know, like 30, 35 years. Like, it is a really phenomenal product for those people who only watch it in March. Like, I get it, but also you're missing out on a lot of fun in the months of November through February too.
Absolutely. It is a tremendous product, and the fact that we've got so many guys returning is nice. But how about if we flip it now to the teams that have revamped a little bit more? Who's a team or two that maybe they don't have as much returning as, say, Duke, Michigan, Arizona, all the teams that we mentioned, but you feel like they really have improved themselves here in the offseason, and you feel like they could take some nice strides forward?
Well, one team, I mean, they've probably been the most active in the portal is Louisville. Flory Badunga, also Jackson Shellstad, two big pieces for that Louisville team. That's going to be one that I look at and say, well, year 3 of Pat Kelsey's tenure? And look, Kelsey's done a great job of digging that program out of the doldrums from where they were, but Louisville still has not ascended back to where I think a lot of us have kind of, remembered where the Cardinals have always been, and that's atop the ACC, the Big East, previously Conference USA, but whatever conference they're in, they've always been near the top. And it's been quite a while since Louisville has actually been Louisville. This is one of those years where I think maybe Louisville's like, all right, we gave you a couple of years to get your feet underneath you. You've done a nice job getting us back to the tournament, but we're not satisfied with just getting back to the tournament. We're trying to compete with our in-state rival, Kentucky. We're trying to get back to where we want to be. So, taking a couple big swings in the portal, I think, is something that Pat Kelsey's got to do, and he did, and got some really talented guys coming to the KFC Yum Center. I love saying that name of their arena there in Louisville, but that's a team, and especially in the ACC too, where there's going to be opportunity to get a really quality bid from that conference, especially because it's not the ACC that, we all kind of grew up on. There's not necessarily the strength atop the conference anymore that there used to be.
Oh, no question about it. And it might be the most delicious arena out there in all of college basketball, other than maybe the Taco Bell Center over there for Boise State. But when they called it the Taco Bell Center, they didn't serve Taco Bell there. Like, what's up with that? That was absolutely ridiculous. I know that our good friend Matt Humans here at VSiN, he was never too happy about that. So hopefully, at the very least, they serve KFC at the KFC Yum Center. But whenever you're on, Curtis, you always serve up great insights. You always serve up great knowledge. You did so once again today, and you're doing such an amazing job out there in the Pacific Northwest. So love the good people at home. Know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can follow along on Twitter and Instagram at a kid from Kent. Always enjoying watching the portal action, the coaching carousel, which is slowed down. My eye, though, on the Todd Golden situation in Florida. Who knows what that's going to look like. But, yeah, we've got a lot of great stuff going on. Yeah, tracking the portal. Washington very active as they lost a bunch of guys. They brought in a bunch of guys. Gonzaga, same thing. So it's going to be very, very busy next few weeks, next few months here. As always, Greg, we're going to keep our eye on it. And I'm always looking forward to that next call from you. And when it happens, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. But it's a very, very busy time in college basketball, even though we just crowned a national champion only like 3 weeks ago. It's 365 days, and I enjoy talking about it with you whenever we get the chance. So appreciate you having me on.
It's always great to be able to have Curtis aboard, and on leap years, it's 366 days in which we're able to take a look at college basketball, and every single one of those days, Curtis, he's doing an amazing job holding it down out there in the Pacific Northwest every single time he joins me. Lots of such great insights, did so once again today. So a big thanks to Curtis for joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you a recap of the news and notes we saw in college basketball over the last 24 hours.
Catch the NBA playoffs on Sling TV, the most flexible live TV streaming service, putting consumers in control to watch games their way with flexible subscriptions. Want to catch one game or a full series on ESPN? Grab a 1, 3, or 7-day pass. If you want to catch as many games as possible, get a monthly subscription with our ABC, NBC, and ESPN combo package. Either way, Sling lets you watch the playoffs your way with no long-term contracts. Learn more at sling.com.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Curtis Rogers, who does such amazing work over at 710 Seattle Sports. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today. So a big thanks to Curtis for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you a recap of the news and notes that we saw in college basketball over the last 24 hours. Hey, Kansas gets on the board with another transfer. Christian Reeves, who was over at College of Charleston last year, and he did begin his career over at Clemson. He has committed to the program. He averaged 11 points, 7.8 boards at a block and half per contest as a part-time starter over at Charleston. Now he is 7'2", so he's going to be able to fill a void and help out a little bit down low, but this is just not really impressive what we've seen out of Kansas thus far. They pick up Keno Dawes, who was able to average about 8 rebounds per game at 6'9" for Utah. Leroy Blyden Jr. was a solid 3-point shooter over at Toledo, but when you lose Flory Badunga, when you lose Aaron Peterson, so many of these guys, they've got a solid recruiting class coming in, but they don't have anyone like Peterson. Yeah, do have to wonder what we're going to get out of Kansas for this upcoming season, because it's not necessarily looking the world's most promising right now. They just haven't inked a lot of guys. Still seeing Kentucky and LSU very slow going here in the portal, though you did see Kentucky get an international man of mystery from Senegal about 24 to 48 hours ago, so that helps them out a little bit, but certainly some big giant question marks right now lingering Kansas and a few of these other programs that, for lack of a better term, they haven't necessarily had the biggest signings here in the offseason. Now, Hawaii's had some nice signings here in the offseason. They've got Isaac Big Fish Johnson returning, Huron Don, a 6'10" big man from Seattle's coming in, Marcus Adams Jr., a former top 75 recruit who 2 seasons ago over at Seastone was a double-figure scorer, top scorer Zach Davidson from Northern Arizona coming in. Now they get some nice versatility. UC San Diego's Bold and Go, who is 6'11", averaged 10.5 points, 5 boards. It's not like he was an amazing 3-point shooter, but he did pop it at about a 30% clip from 3 this last season. He comes into the program. Love what Hawaii's doing right now. I do think that they still need a little bit more 3-point shooting. I recognize that that's never really been their game. They do have Chance Trujillo, who's coming on over from Utah Tech, but this looks like it's going to be a team with a lot of size. They're going to be able to dominate on the boards. Again, that has been a specialty of Aron Ganat over the last few seasons, and with being able to add so many great defensive players, with being able to have so much versatility as well. I really love what this team is going to be able to do for this upcoming season, especially being able to retain a few of their own from a season ago. So it's been a really good offseason here for Hawaii, and that's just another nice signing. This, in my opinion, is a solid signing for Denver, a Denver team that very much was looking to light it up from three-point range last season, and they weren't really looking to play a lot of defense. Drake Addy, he comes in over from North Florida. He knows all about that system. He's going to be in the fold at 6'8", shot about 34% from three, 6 points, 2.5 rebounds per game. Denver, they already inked a guy in CJ Highland, who was a nice three-point shooter over at West Carolina, team that really didn't guard the three-point line. Babacar Mengi, he comes over from UMKC, 7-footer that I really didn't see a lot of minutes. It looks like Denver's going to be cut from the same cloth this season. Probably not going to be giving you a lot of defense. They're going to be a team that's going to be very rock solid on offense, and they're going to be able to give you some good excitement there. So it looks like we are in for more good, clean family fun for this upcoming season. So that'll be fun to take a look at. For Davidson, they're on the board with transfer number 2 as Nick Jankowski. He last season was over at St. Thomas, and he was rock solid. Rookie of the year out there in the conference. 16 points, 5 boards, pair of assists, shot about 34% from 3. I feel like he's a great fit with Davidson. Would like to see Davidson get a little bit more size. They're also bringing in Jackson Keith, a 6'5", a little bit of a combo player from Butler as well. They obviously have had a few issues with regards to the boards, but this is a team that is very reliant upon three-point shooting, having a good high-powered offense. They're a team that isn't going to be looking to play super up-tempo. For St. Thomas, they've got a variety of different styles. They've been looking to push pace over the last few seasons, but overall, I think that he can be a really good fit for this team, so absolutely love what they're doing out there. Jalen Cross, he was over at Wake Forest last season. He has decided that he is going to be going to the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Last season, Cross just unable to get out there on the floor too much for about 2 points per game, but he's a native of the great state of North Carolina. I think that he's going to be able to go out there, give this team some solid production. They already signed Trey Perry, who was over at Miami of Ohio, saw some solid minutes for that team as well. So they've done a nice job in terms of revamping. They're probably going to want to add a little bit more down low. That's still something that they have yet to be able to check off the box, but overall, they've been able to get a nice start here in the transfer portal. Considering the resources, I think that they're doing a good job here in terms of being able to get themselves set up for some Sunbelt action here for the upcoming season. It's been a pretty silent offseason for Missouri State thus far, but they do get up on the board. Isaiah Medina, he last season was over at DePaul at 7'1". He just really did not see any sort of playing time whatsoever. He just decided redshirt. He's decided that he's going to be heading on over there. For Missouri State, they have really been lacking a lot of size here over the last few seasons, so I do think that this is going to be a solid pickup for them. We're going to see what he's able to bring because he had a little bit of fanfare coming out of high school, a little bit of recruitment, not a guy that's probably going to be lighting the world on fire or anything like that, and a little bit of a project, but still, this is a solid add for Missouri State. They are losing quite a bit of that backcourt from a season ago, so we'll have to see what other pieces they add because right now they are on the board with a 1 transfer, so they're going to need to do a little bit more there, but that is a good starting spot for them, and now they do have themselves up on the board with being able to have someone inked all up there. You have Niall Ralph Byer. He last season was over at Sacred Heart, and he has decided that he is going to be going to VCU. With VCU, they've done a pretty solid job, in my opinion, over the last few years, even with having a little bit of a coaching change. Now you've got Phil Martelli Jr. in there. They've done a great job in terms of having no fall off whatsoever. Ralph Byer, I think, is going to fit the system really well. At 6'4", 14 points, about 4 boards, shot 44% from 3-point range. So I absolutely love his overall game, and I think that he's going to be a good fit with a lot of the other pieces that they brought in. For VCU, they bring in Blake Harper, who's got some upside coming on over from Creighton. Torrey Ellison, he's a 6'8", little bit of a combo player that comes over from Middle Tennessee. Probably not a guy that's going to be spacing the floor, popping up from 3 or anything like that, but he's a guy that I think is going to be able to come in, give this team some good versatility, and help them out with regards to that good perimeter defense as well. Abrima Traore, he last season was over at Utah, and he's decided that he's going to be going to Morgan State. Now, for Morgan State, this is their first ad, and I'm not here to say that this was someone that was just absolutely laying the world on fire, but for Morgan State, they have been among the MEAC teams. I would say one of the better teams in terms of low post play out there. For E.B. Traore, he only saw action in 9 games last year. He's a little bit of a project player that comes over from the country of Mali, but I do think that this is going to be able to help him out. I do think that with Morgan State and them being a really nice perimeter defense as well, just that system in general, they should be a better team than average in terms of MEAC defense. Now, that's relative because MEAC defenses, are going to find out they generate a lot of turnovers, but that's because you just get a lot of sloppy offense in the conference in general. But being able to have a low post presence like that, you just don't see a lot of size in the MEAC. That's a good add for them, and that should be able to help them revamp for this upcoming season. Southern Miss is now on the board with a transfer as well. Marcus Overstreet, he was over at Old St. Josie State. He has decided that he's going to be inking with Southern Miss. Last year, he saw a little bit of a downer, about 3 points, 3 rebounds per game. Really had his best year when he was over at Mercer 2 seasons ago. Was averaging about 6 points, 5.5 rebounds per game. It's a Southern Miss team that has been pretty solid with regards to their low post play. At 6'9", he's able to do a good job there. Really doesn't have any stretchability to be able to pop it from 3 or anything like that, but he is a guy that should be able to give this team a little bit more of a post presence. We saw the guys like Tyleek Weeks along with Isaac Tavares do a solid job down low for this team. They just really left something to be desired with that 3-point shooting, so they are going to need to address that here in the offseason, but they do get a good first add. We'll see what else they're going to be able to add moving forward. The Richmond Spiders just keep on adding. Darren Sarin, he was over at UC Irvine last season, spent a year over at Sanford as well. Didn't see any playing time whatsoever with Sanford, but this past year over at UC Irvine, a really good defensive team. He was able to give that team 11.5 points, 5 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.7 steals. Now, he did only shoot 26% from 3, but Richmond is adding him. For this Richmond team, they were a team that was a little bit suspect with regards to the way that they were guarding, especially along the inside. At 6'5", he's going to be able to be very stretchable, and I really like that Richmond is going to provide themselves with a lot of options. Typically, this is a slow and controlled team. They look to speed it up a little bit more last season, and having a guy in Sarin who is at an up-tempo, really good defensive team like Irvine, I think is going to help them out. They already picked up Don Stewart, who was a relatively solid scorer over at Penn State. The Butler connection of Jamie Kaiser, Jack McCaffrey is solid. Amon Doris was a 16-point per game scorer over at Bucknell at 6'11". Andrew Ball at 6'8". He's going to be able to give the team some stretchability and versatility as well. I really think that they've done a nice job here in the portal. We've seen a lot of these Northeast teams in general that focus a little bit more on the basketball side of things. Recognize that Richmond has a bit of football as well, but the Big East, the Atlantic 10, they've really had some nice signings here in the offseason, and that's another one for them. For Pacific, they're starting to get on the board with some nice transfers. Jalen Thompson, he last season was playing over at Stanford. He has decided that he is going to ink with the team, and with Thompson, he last season was averaging about 2.5 points per contest. Not a guy that was really able to give you a whole heck of a lot, but still a guy that was relatively highly touted coming out of high school for Pacific. They do have a lot to replace from a season ago, but they do have some nice ancillary adds that have upside. Gavin Ripp, he's coming out over from San Diego. You've got Jacob McFarland, who was over at Houston a season ago at 6'11". Adriel Noah, he was over at South Florida. Big thing for Pacific is they're going to need to do a better job on the turnovers. Last year, this was one of the worst teams in all of college basketball in terms of taking care of the ball, but a very rock-solid defensive team, a team that was able to do a nice job in terms of just being able to do the little things well. They were one of the best free throw shooting teams in all of college basketball as well, so I do think that he's a guy that's going to be able to fit the system, and I think that he's going to be molded in the likeness of this program. And then the deuce is loose. Deuce Jones, he last season was over at St. Joe's. When he left the program, he was their top scorer. He ultimately would average about 15.5 points per game. Only shot 26.5% from 3, but he was the A10 Rookie of the Year when he was over at LaSalle 2 years ago. 12.5 points, 4 boards, and a full allotment of games because he only played 10 when he was over at St. Joe's. But for UAB, this is a really nice gift for them. Now, for UAB, for one, they do know that they're getting a guy that was a little bit distraught with things. Now, part of that is because he did have his coach leave in the offseason in like September as well, so it's a very sudden coaching change there as well. But still, with Deuce Jones, he should be able to do a nice job fitting the system. UAB could still use a little bit more three-point shooting. It looks like that's going to be a little bit of a rough aspect for the team. The only other guy that they're bringing in is Jeremy Alizi, who was over at Southeast Louisiana 8 seasons ago, but still, I think they should be able to go in there, be able to give this team some nice production. And then you've got Gabe Dines, who at 7'5", has decided that he's going to be going to Louisville, and I think this is a nice upside add for them. He's probably going to be a little bit of insurance for Flory Badunga. As we know, they're bringing in Jackson Shellstead, Alvaro Fogarius, and a few others, so Louisville is very much revamped. But for Dines, I felt like he was so badly underutilized by USC last year. He was averaging about 3 points, 2.5 rebounds per game. Keep in mind, his last season at Youngstown State, he was able to average 3.1 blocks per contest. USC, it felt like, was better when he was off on the floor. They were worse when he was off the floor. I don't understand why they didn't give him more minutes. Hopefully he finds a little bit more of, shall we say, a solid role with this Louisville team, because I do think that even though they've got Flory Badunga, there might be room for the two of them, and perhaps it means that Louisville won't take over 52% of their field goal attempts from three-point this season, but I like the ad there. And then Arizona State, they're adding some more size. Obviously, Paulius Marsoukas coming on over with his coach in Randy Bennett from St. Mary's. That's a big guy, but now they've got some insurance for him and Ben Defty. He last season was over at Boston U, a true 7-footer that shot 69% from the floor, 15 points, 7 boards. He's a smart kid because the Patriot League schools are all very smart. 1.7 blocks per contest. Absolutely love what Arizona State has done here in the offseason. It was so long overdue that they canned Bobby Hurley. Now it feels like this program is back going in the right direction. Maybe they're not adding the splashiest guys in the world. I would say that Marsoukas is probably your biggest add here in the offseason for Arizona State, but Joel Foxwell was solid over at Portland. Emmanuel Incenti, he's a nice offensive stopper. Nate Garcia, he's a true 7-footer. It looks like Randy Bennett is looking to build this the way that he did over at St. Mary's, having a lot of size, having maybe a little bit of a shortage right now of guards other than Foxwell. You don't have a ton there, but still love what Arizona State is doing, and loving the fact that we've got ourselves a lot of headlines right now happening in college basketball. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever you podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated, and then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. A big thanks once again to our guy Curtis Rogers, who does such great work over at 710 Seattle Sports, for joining me in the last segment, coming at you guys every single day on this podcast here in the offseason, give you guys a recap of the news and notes that we're seeing and get you all set for the upcoming season once the transfer portal gets all sorted out, and then once we get in season picks and analysis on every single game, every single day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
Catch the NBA playoffs on Sling TV, the most flexible live TV streaming service, putting consumers in control to watch games their way with flexible subscriptions. Want to catch one game or a full series on ESPN? Grab a 1, 3, or 7-day pass. If you want to catch as many games as possible, get a monthly subscription with our ABC, NBC, and ESPN combo package. Either way, Sling lets you watch the playoffs your way with no long-term contracts. Learn more at sling.com.